Welcome to the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast. Today we have another episode in our quick tips series. This one is on studying effectively using spaced repetition. Your Bar Exam Toolbox hosts are Alison Monahan and Lee Burgess, that's me. We are here to demystify the bar exam experience so you can study effectively, stay sane, and hopefully pass and move on with your life. We're the co-creators of the Law School Toolbox, the Bar Exam Toolbox, and the career-related website Career Dicta. Alison also runs the Girls Guide to Law School. If you enjoy the show, please leave a review on your favorite listening app and check out our sister podcast, the Law School Toolbox podcast. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can reach us via the contact form on barexamtoolbox.com, and we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's get started. Hello, and welcome back to another in our quick tips series from the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast. Today, we are going to talk a little bit about spaced repetition as a learning tool. We are presented with overwhelming amounts of information to memorize throughout law school and, of course, while studying for the bar exam. Trying to learn and memorize all of the information can often feel like drinking from a fire hose. And as you may have already figured out, last-minute cramming doesn't work. It may have worked for you in high school or college, but it doesn't work for law school classes, and it definitely doesn't work for the bar exam. But there are other studying and learning techniques that do work, and today we are going to tell you all about the science-based technique called spaced repetition that can help you throughout law school as well as the bar exam. Then we will tell you about a program you can use to try it out. Spaced repetition is a well-documented learning technique that incorporates strategically timed review to maximize memory retention. To memorize a new concept, you generally need to review it frequently at first, but less often as it becomes stored in your long-term memory. The idea is to review material at timed intervals, with longer gaps for material you know well, and initially shorter gaps for new material that you're mastering. It's the opposite of cramming and promises better retention. Because in reality, cramming doesn't serve us in the long term. It may have served us at some point, and that's why we did it. For example, in 5th grade geography, we may have memorized all of our spelling words or the state capitals the night before our test, but quickly erased them from our memory as soon as we walked out of the classroom. What's the capital of Vermont again? Cramming may work in a pinch, but it simply doesn't work for long-term retention. Law school teaches us concepts that build on each other, and during bar exam prep, we are asked to memorize an enormous amount of information. Cramming is not an effective tool for learning the law, nor is it helpful for concepts that build on each other. Spaced repetition, however, is very effective for long-term recall and extremely effective for concepts that build on each other. There is science to prove it. The science behind spaced repetition can be traced back to the work of German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus. He studied memory and came up with a curve showing the rate at which memories decay, a curve known as the forgetting curve. His forgetting curve shows how the information we learn is lost over time when we do nothing to retain it. Ebbinghaus determined that we forget 90% of the information we learn within 3 days. Ever heard of cramming referred to as the garbage dump theory of learning? This is exactly why. Because we cram it all in, use it on the test, and then dump it out, forgetting 90% of the information we just crammed in. However, in the studying the forgetting curve, Ebbinghaus learned that the more individuals reviewed material, the less they forgot. By reviewing material at spaced intervals, it becomes more ingrained in your long-term memory, and you are less likely to forget it. No more garbage dumping. And the best part about spaced repetition is that you can potentially commit more information to memory in less time. The key to spaced repetition learning is to review the material at the precise moment that you are about to forget it. This reinforces the memory. Every time you do that, the rate at which you forget the information lengthens and the information becomes more solidified in your long-term memory. Now, spaced repetition is not unique to law study. It's used in many contexts where large volumes of information must be memorized. It has been effectively used by medical students and people trying to learn foreign languages. For bar students, this is a promising approach to learning the black letter law. It's suitable for bar study, especially the MBE and MPRE. It can also be used for exam prep during law school. So how might this work? Well, there are some apps and websites that can help, one of which we will talk about in a minute. But the best way might just be to use good old-fashioned paper flashcards. The beauty of the flashcards is that it enables you to sort material by things you know and things you are still learning. The concepts you are still learning, you will obviously want to review more frequently. As you learn the concepts, you will review them less frequently, but you will still review them periodically. For your law school classes, you could create flashcards for the major concepts and legal rules in all of your classes. We recommend doing this early and often so that you are not creating an enormous amount of flashcards at once, and also so that you have the flashcards to review throughout the semester or bar prep period. Creating flashcards is a great way to actively engage with and review the material you have covered each week. You could put them in a flashcard box labeled Box 1, which you review for 30 minutes a day. When you feel like you know them, you could move them to a box labeled Box 2. Box 2 could be reviewed every other day. When you feel like you know those, you could move to Box 3, which is reviewed once a week. From there, you could have a Box 4 to review bi-weekly and perhaps a Box 5 to review just before the test. Now, if you are reviewing Box 3 and get a card wrong, you will move that one back down to Box 2. That way, it gets reviewed more frequently. When you get it right again, you move it back to Box 3. Your cards will move back and forth between the boxes throughout the semester or bar prep period, depending on if you are able to recall the information correctly. This flashcard system we are describing is called the Littner's system, and you can read a bit more about it in an article linked in our show resources. This method was developed by a German scientist named Sebastian Littner in the 1970s as a way to implement the spaced repetition system. And I apologize if I'm pronouncing his name incorrectly. If you decide to give the Littner study system a try, you can do it in a couple of ways. You can keep your flashcards for your various topics separate and have multiple boxes for each class, so 20 to 25 boxes or piles total, depending on how many classes you are taking. Or you could mix your classes together into one big pile and then sort them according to cards you've committed to memory. Those of you memorizing law school material might prefer to keep your cards separated out according to class, especially since you will be testing at different times. However, bar takers may find it helpful to mix topics. If you would like to give spaced repetition a try but don't want to make flashcards, there is an online program you might want to take a look at called Serious or SRS. You can find it at www.spacedrepetition.com, which we will also link in our show resources. The SRS adaptation of spaced repetition is a system of electronic flashcards organized in decks. These decks include MPRE, Boost, and Discover decks, as well as a patent bar deck. The Boost deck currently contains cards based on the most frequently tested MBE topics. Subscribers can make their own Discover deck and choose to share or keep them private. There are Discover decks for state-specific bar subjects, like Delaware crimes, and law school-specific courses, like Con Law with Professor Lobel at Pitt. While the Boost deck is created and vetted by law professors, the Discover decks are crowdsourced by law students. The MPRE deck is free, but Boost deck, Create and Share, and the Patent deck are premium products. Now, to get started, you place decks in your stack and click Study Now. You'll work through 10 flashcards, just 10. The face of the card poses a question, such as, what are a lawyer's responsibilities when communicating with unrepresented persons? Think about the answer. Click on the card and flip it to see if you're right. Now assess how well you knew the answer, rating yourself on a scale from 1, know it worse, to 5, know it better. The scoring scale takes into account not only accuracy, but also ease or difficulty of recall. Your responses are collected, and they'll influence what you're assigned to study next. One of our tutors tried the SRS program, and this is how it worked. During day 1, our tutor spent about 5 minutes studying 10 MPRE cards. That didn't feel like enough studying for the day, so she opted for cram mode and tried out the boost deck. Cram mode provides extra practice, but it doesn't count for SRS purposes. You can't rate how well you knew the answers, and your responses aren't tabulated. Doing more than the assigned load violates SRS principles because the algorithm is set to optimize your learning forgetting curve. At day 2, our tutor was then assigned the original 10 MPRE cards to review, plus 10 new cards from her stack, MPRE and Boost. When she logged in for day 3, our tutor had 15 cards to review. The 5 she knew best had been eliminated, but they would be saved for her to review later. Her recall improved on at least 10 of these old 15 cards. Then she was assigned 10 new cards to study. The algorithm relies on your self-assessment of how well you knew the material and how quickly you recalled it. If you rank your knowledge worse, you'll continue to see that question more frequently. If you rank your knowledge better, you won't see that question as often. Because the program relies on self-assessment, it is possible you might spend unnecessary time on a concept you know adequately, or you might not spend enough time to truly master the information. Of course, this is also true with paper flashcards. It's very easy to make your own cards. You can tailor the material and phrasing to your professor's preferences, your curriculum, or your jurisdiction. You can share with classmates, your study group, or invite your professor to make cards. Although the SRS program may provide enough practice to prepare you for the MPRE, it is a supplement for MBE prep and should definitely not be considered a replacement for it. There are other apps and software programs available that can help you implement a spaced repetition study program, but the SRS program is specifically tailored to law students. So give spaced repetition a try, particularly if you like flashcards, studying in short bursts, and varying your study methods. It's scientifically proven to help you commit more information to your long-term memory over fewer hours of study. If you don't want to make paper flashcards, give the SRS program at www.spacedrepetition.com a try. Now, it's important, particularly if using this method for the bar exam, that you start early. We recommend creating flashcards for concepts immediately after listening to your bar review lectures and beginning spaced repetition review at that point. For law students, we recommend creating flashcards at least once a week. Creating the flashcards is a great way to study because it forces you to actively engage with your class materials and make sure you have clear, concise, and complete rule statements. We definitely recommend giving spaced repetition a try and seeing how you like it. After you've spent time trying to learn material with this method, reach out and let us know how it worked. And there you have it, spaced repetition. If you'd enjoyed this episode of the Bar Exam Toolbox podcast, please take a second to leave a review and rating on your favorite listening app. We'd really appreciate it, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach out to Lee or Alison at lee@barexamtoolbox.com or allison@barexamtoolbox.com, or you can always contact us via our website contact form at barexamtoolbox.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon.